With apologies to the true carpenters in the audience, I must admit that my carpentry skills are not very good. But that's the whole point of the purpose of this segment, is to show you you don't have to be a good carpenter to build L-Girder benchwork. There are only 4 sizes of lumber used in building this L-Girder benchwork. The 1x4 forms the web of the L-Girder, and the 1x3 forms the top of the L-Girder. 1x3s are also used as joists across the L-Girder to support the track and roadbed, as we'll see a little bit later. The 1x2s are used for cross bracing on the legs, and the 2x2s are the legs themselves. And that's all you need. You don't need to be working with great big lumber. Even for O-gauge, these sizes of lumber are big enough and strong enough. As far as tools and other materials are concerned, you need some good glue. I happen to use Carpenter's wood glue. I like the faster setup time than the white glue. I have a couple of these quick grip clamps, which come in handy, a T-square of course, and very important, the type of screws. I use drywall screws in 2 lengths, 1.5 inches and 1.25 inches. The drywall screws in most cases can be driven in without drilling a pilot hole. Saves a lot of time, and they work really well. Since we're going to be making a 12-foot long L-Girder today for this piece that's remaining to be done on my layout, I've asked my good friend George Sile to come in and give me a hand today. Hi George, how you doing today?
Fine, how are you, Rich?
George is a fellow crew member on 765, was building a layout himself, and between the two of us we're going to try and build an L-Girder today.
Okay.
All right, let's get started.
Okay, Rich.
We've got a 12-foot piece of lumber down here, and we'll just set them up here. Okay. What we've got is a 1x4, which we will actually set on edge, and we'll put this 1x3 on top of it like so to form the L. That's all there is to it. First thing we're going to do is lay a bead of glue down the edge of the 1x4. Nothing fancy, just put a nice bead of glue down the whole edge of the 1x4. If you're doing this by yourself, you can rig a couple of C-clamps to hold the board on edge, but it is a lot easier, especially when doing one this long at 12 feet. It's a lot easier to have a helper.
Sure is.
Now, we're going to take the 1x3 and start by just placing it onto the 1x4 on top like so. Just getting it roughly in position. We don't have to be too accurate yet. And I'm going to anchor this end with 1 screw. Now I mentioned earlier that usually with the drywall screws you don't have to drill a pilot hole. But when you're working this close to the edge and the end of a board, I like to drill one anyway just to be sure. Okay, now I'm going to get a screw, and I use the 1.5 inch screws here. And I want to make sure you understand you don't need to have an expensive electric screwdriver to do this. This is just a plain old electric drill, variable speed reversible drill that I've chucked a Phillips head bit in. And this is all that's involved in driving the screws. Get the board lined up the way I want it, and all right, I'll put a screw in there. Maybe I'll drill another one here.
Do we need to measure between the 2 screws, Rich?
Well, we could, George, but this L-Girder benchwork is not precision carpentry. That's the whole point of this. We could measure every 12 inches or 16 inches or whatever, but it's really not necessary. About every foot or so will provide the strength and the clamping force we need for the glue to set up. So I'm just going to continue to drill the holes, then we'll drive the screws.
Okay, sounds good.
When you go to put the screws in, you want the edge of the 1x3 and the edge of the 1x4 to be flush, and many times they won't be because this number 2 pine is not always the straightest wood in the world. So when you get the thing ready to drive the screw, just pull it into line and run the screw in. Just like that. It holds it flush here, which is what you want for ultimate strength. And we'll just proceed down here, and on each one, we're going to pull it into place. Okay. This particular 1x4 has got quite a bend in it, but when we get done, the L-Girder will be fairly straight. Here we have to, I think we're both going to have to push on this one, George, because this is off quite a ways. Let's pull it in. You ready?
Go.
By golly, it's there now. There we go. Okay, we've got all the screws in, and we now have the L-Girder. It's just that simple. The 1x4 that forms the web, the 1x3 across the top. Now we'll make the legs.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just about a ½ an inch too high. I need to come down just a little. I'll loosen the clamp and we'll sneak it down about like so. That's where these quick grip clamps are so nice because they can be grasped real tight and released immediately. And we got lucky. That's 43.5 on the nose. Now, because we're not real close to the edge of the wood here, these drywall screws will allow me to go in without a pilot hole. Just like that. Driving the first screw, now we'll use a square to true up the leg, and we'll drive the second screw. And we're off a little bit. Just like that. That's good. All right. Screw number 2 going in now. Excellent. Okay. The next step will be to go to the other end. We'll put a level up here, get the other leg set so that the length of this girder is level. In order to level the L-Girder lengthwise, we need to know roughly where it's going to go, and that's why I've put the masking tape marks on the floor here. Now we'll put the L-Girder roughly where it's going to be positioned, and George and I will work to level it and anchor the leg at the other end. Okay? So we'll bring it approximately right here. That's roughly where it's going to go. Now, George, if you'll man the level,
Okay.
I'll work on the clamp here at the other end until we get her where we want her to be. What do I need
All
to
right,
do?
you need to go down just a little bit. That'll do right there.
Right there. Okay, excellent. Clamp will hold it, and we'll drive our first screw. Okay. That looks pretty good right there. We'll drive the second screw. We've got 2 legs installed. Now it's very important to be careful with this because even though we've got 2 screws in the legs, they're really not stable until we get the gusset angle supports in. Next step is spacing the L-girders and getting them level span-wise and supporting the legs. Now what we have done, we have clamped a temporary joist here to hold the L-girders 30 inches apart, which is what we need for this piece. We've also got clamps at the other end, holding the end down there so that the joists remain parallel. We've also measured the distance between the top of the legs and the bottom of the legs, and we have temporarily clamped a 1x2 across the bottom of the legs to hold the legs parallel. Now we're going to put the cross bracing and the gusset supports on the legs. Are you all set, George?
Okay.
All right. That's about where we want it. That'll look fine. All right. And the bottom one over here, we'll need to bring it up just a little, about right there. Okay, now we'll come around here, get the second one set to go, and we need to come up about right there.
Looks good here.
That will be fine. That's good. And the other one down here, that looks perfect. Got our cross bracing set. This supports the legs this way. Run the screw in here. Okay, takes care of that one. Now, let me give you a hand, and we will do this one here. And that's all there is to that. The true advantage and ease of working with L-Girder Benchwork can be seen when you get to this point, because now you attach cross joists across the L-girders wherever you need them to support your track in whatever configuration your track is in. Attaching them is simple. That's what the lip on the top of the L-girder's for. You take a short screw, bring it into the bottom of the L-girder lip, and run it right up into the joist. That side of that joist is attached. Now I'll go get the other side. Once you have these cross joists attached, this is what supports your track, and it is very sturdy. If you use cookie cutter type road bed, whether it's straight or a curve, and it's at a low level, it can sit right on the joists. You attach it with a couple of screws. If it's going to be an elevated track, you use risers made out of scrap pieces of 1x2 or 1x3 that screw into the joists. The track then sets on top of the riser. It can be level at any height you need. You can even tilt it a little bit if you want to super elevate your curves. And the height of these risers can be anything from these little 4-inch risers to these great big 15-inch jobs back here. If you're building a yard area, you can take a large sheet of plywood. This is just simulating it, but it could be a full 4x8 sheet. Put it right down on the joists, run some screws through, put Homosote on top of that, and you have a yard area that you could literally get up and walk on. Another advantage to working with L-Girder Benchwork is the ability to put access holes wherever you need them. Now in my case, I've got a little corner here, and I've got benchwork that's almost 4 feet wide. I've got a hidden, or what will eventually be a hidden track back here that will be covered by scenery. This little access hole that I can get at by crawling underneath the benchwork and standing up here will enable me to reach this hidden track easily, should I ever need to get back here to correct a problem or fix a derailment. This is another one of the big advantages of L-Girder Benchwork. Now I meant what I said when I said you don't need to use anything bigger than 1x4s, 1x3s, and 2x2s for this benchwork, even for O-gauge. George and I here have got a combined weight of almost 380 pounds sitting on this benchwork, and it's just as stable as could be. L-Girder Benchwork, it's easy to build, and it really gives you a lot of flexibility in how you can build your layout.